Good morning and welcome to today's webinar on 15 fantastic user adoption tips for your organization. So I thought I would talk a little bit about who I am and why I'm talking about user adoption. So my name is Heidi Newhauser and I am a Dynamics 365 implementation specialist at Behringer Technology Group. I also like to help out in the Philadelphia CRM user group chapter, and I'm currently serving as the chair of that. I am a user adoption specialist. I have 11 years of Microsoft CRM experience and a few more with some custom CRM software. And currently we are at Behringer a Dynamics 365 online user. Not so far in the distant past, we did perform an upgrade ourselves from 2013 on-premise to Dynamics 365 online version 9. So we felt some of the pain points in the upgrade, and I want to share some of the things that we have enhanced as well internally with our CRM system to enhance user adoption in the new Dynamics 365 online version. I also blog often at the Behringer.net blogs. My handle is CRM Nerd if you want to check out some more blogs and resources about user adoption. And just for fun, my favorite CRM config item that we're going to talk about today are model-driven apps using Power Apps. And I'll walk through what those look like as one of the tips of today's webinar, and also to show you a little demo if you haven't used them yet. So I think it's a good idea to understand what this webinar is about and what we're here to talk about, and make sure that everybody gets what they want out of it. So our learning objectives over the next hour or so is to learn best practices about user adoption in CRM technology, specifically Dynamics 365. We'll talk about new techniques you can use to increase user adoption at your organization. And finally, leverage the technology and tools available within the CRM platform to help increase user adoption for you. So I have a couple questions just to understand everyone on the call and what your scenario is. So I'm going to put a poll up right now to just understand what version of CRM you're in. So if you're on Dynamics 365 online, Dynamics 365 on-premise, 2016 or 2015, 2013, or 2011 or older. So I'll just leave that up for a minute. And I'm only asking this to understand if I need to point out different features that may or may not be available to you. Most of the things we're going to talk about on this webinar are relevant to everybody who's on the 2013 platform or newer. However, if there are a few that are on the older ones, I'll just point out things that might not be available. All right, I'm going to close the poll. Looks like we have everybody on Dynamics 365 online today, which is fantastic. So you'll be able to access all the features. I know we're recording this webinar as well, so I will point out anything that may not be available to some of the older versions. So today's agenda, we're going to break up the user adoption tips into three main areas. We've got end user tips, configuration tips, and training tips. So I also would like to understand a little bit more about what your primary role is in your organization. So I just launched another poll here. So I know a lot of people who work in the CRM world, especially those of us who are interested in user adoption, wear many hats in your organization. So if you could just pick the primary role that you have, that would be great. Again, just to understand where we might want to spend more time. This is generally designed for a system administrator, but I can absolutely point out different things for managers, users, executives, or those who specify in training. Okay, great. We've got system admins on the call. That is perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so with no further ado, we're going to dive into end user tips. So end users, they are more than just the engine that drives reporting. So I made this quote up, but I feel like it's extremely relevant in a lot of the organizations that I've been working on. So they will need to learn how to use this to do their job. They'll figure it out from management. So end users of your CRM system or any other technology system for that matter are the most important building block to a successful implementation. So why then are they so often overlooked? Why is management so apt to dictate requirements without a single consideration of how the end user will react? Don't let this be you. We're going to go through some tips around how we can be more sensitive to the needs of your end users and how to help use a group of those end users to drive adoption throughout your organization. Which brings us to tip number 1 for today, and that is to form a group of end users. So who wants to be a super user in CRM? One surefire way that you can help increase user adoption in your Dynamics 365 system is to start to build out a team of CRM super users. So you can play with the terminology here to find out whatever works in your organization. We can have super CRMers, CRM ninjas, champions, early adopters, CRM advocates, or any clever term that you can think of that fits with your culture. But the ultimate goal of this group is to learn CRM well and get extra exposure to the CRM process, especially during big system changes like upgrades or enhancements, which is eventually going to lead to the development of a team of CRM advocates. So if you don't have this in your organization today, where do you get started? I would say the first step here is to identify and empower your super user group. Now, one important part here is my recommendation that your super user group should include a variety of skill levels. So most organizations will absolutely include your tech savvy users who are using CRM well, and that's fantastic. But you should also include users who are not using CRM often, the people who are kind of your roadblocks. They're the ones that haven't adopted the system. And even if they're loud, if that's the loud user who is influencing the rest of your culture, you certainly want them to be on board. We also want middle of the road users. And the reason I recommend including more than just your super users, the people that already know and use CRM well, is that by varying your skill level in this group, you will get a better view into why people are or are not using the system, which could encourage use and a more robust understanding of what the current pain points are. In addition, you want to make sure to include users from different areas of the business, not in one specific territory. So that might be geographic or it might be functional. So once you've identified who these individuals are, you have management buy-in to use them in this team of super users, of ninjas and champions and advocates. You want to make sure that you are using this group right from the beginning. And what I mean by that is to have them involved right at the requirements gathering stage. Then you can continue to include them in the feedback and review sessions and throughout user acceptance testing stage. One last tip here, if your organization and culture is driven by acknowledgement, you might want to consider providing something like CRM champion certificates just to get a little bit of extra recognition of this group throughout the company. So tip number 2 is to include end users in your requirements phase. So we can use that super user group. We can also use people outside of that super user group. So we've got a scenario number 1 and scenario number 2 that we're going to talk about a little bit. So just picture this. An organization gathers all major decision makers and managers into a room for a requirements gathering session. The project manager or the system admin, whoever wears that hat at your company, says, what metrics do you want to report on? The sales manager wants 15 fields. The customer service manager wants a different 24 fields. The operations manager needs 12 other fields. And the CEO wants a roll up of metrics that requires a whole other 10 fields. So all of a sudden, the project manager or system admin leaves that requirements gathering session, number 1, with over 60 new required fields to add to the solution. Now, I'm willing to bet that a lot of you on this call have experienced a version of this picture that I painted for you. But how will adding 60 required fields to forms in CRM affect your salesperson or your customer service reps? Do those configuration changes add value to business goals? How much time does a salesperson lose by entering 60 required fields in CRM when they might only need 2? So now let's move over and we're going to paint another scenario here. So let's picture scenario number 2. Your organization gathers a sampling of end users into the room for a requirements gathering session. There's tenured sales reps, there's inside sales reps, a customer service rep, marketing associate, as well as others across all areas of the organization. The project manager says, how can the system help you to do your job more efficiently? So then the sales reps start talking about manual reporting they're doing weekly for their managers. Customer service reps might talk about how many screen pops, tabs, and programs they have to go back and forth between on any given call. So the project manager here in scenario 2 leaves with a much different to-do list. His or her challenge is now, how do I leverage technology to alleviate the pain points for these end users and optimize business processes? Now, that's not to say management shouldn't be involved, of course. I would recommend having business requirements meeting number 1 is played out like we talked above with the end users, and then the management meeting should occur. So simply put, I always recommend that end users should be involved at the start of a requirements gathering stage. Walk that fine line of customizing and configuring for your end users while meeting business requirements from management. Apart from involving them in requirement meetings, you can also do ride-alongs, job shadowing, pretty much anything you can think of to better understand what they're doing today and where technology and where CRM can help improve the process. So now we're going to move on to our next section of configuration tips. So how can you configure CRM to increase user adoption? So we're going to spend a lot of our time this morning on this particular section. So tip number 3 in today's webinar is CRM Everywhere. One of the great features of Dynamics 365 and Microsoft CRM products is that it can be accessible anywhere. It can be through an internet browser, through Outlook, or on a mobile device. So to encourage user adoption, it's best to ensure that you're offering Dynamics 365 through the method your users prefer. So I know we have all Dynamics 365 online users, so internet is everywhere. However, if you are an on-premise deployment, you can access the internet after configuring internet-facing deployment, IFD, which will allow your users to gain access to CRM data through an internet browser. So there's extensive documentation from Microsoft about how to configure internet-facing deployment. If anyone on this call is using on-premise and you'd like more information on how to do that, please shoot me an email after this webinar and I will absolutely send you the link to that documentation. So the second thing I want to talk about is Outlook. So does your organization rely heavily on Outlook? A lot of people do. And have no fear, because Dynamics 365 has a fantastic native integration with Outlook via the Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. Now, this is a lightweight app. If you have been using CRM in a prior life or in the past, an older version, there was a full Outlook plugin. This is a little bit different. This is an Office add-in that provides a Dynamics 365 assistant for your Outlook, which can be on your Outlook desktop, Outlook web, or Outlook mobile. It's extremely simple to manage and deploy directly within Dynamics 365 as a system administrator. And with a few clicks, you can regard an email from a prospective client, create a lead, update fields, right in Outlook that transfers seamlessly over into Dynamics 365. It performs very quickly, and it's using the Dynamics Web API to retrieve data in real time. And finally, we come to mobile access. If your sales team is mobile friendly, you definitely want to check out the new Dynamics 365 for Phones app. With the V9 update that was pushed to Dynamics 365 online customers, Microsoft presented a huge improvement in the app. So this allows us to leverage the unified user interface. Mobile app users can now not only perform all CRM tasks, but they can also use the new timeline display of activities, notes, and posts, and walk through task flows. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about what that looks like on a future tip. So tip 4, why aren't they using it? So this goes along with what we talked about before on tip 2 about using your end users to find out where the pain points are. So there is a pain point your users have in their daily job, and most likely it's not in CRM. So don't feel like you have to look in CRM where their pain points are. Your challenge, should you choose to accept it as the new user adoption specialist at your organization, is to find that pain. And how can you find that pain? Job shadows work really well for customer service reps and inside sales reps. Now, note about job shadowing. Your job, if you are going to job shadow someone to see why they aren't using it, to find that pain, don't tell them how they should be using the system. Just watch what they're doing today. Make careful notes. Maybe take point of how many clicks they're using, how many different apps does a customer service rep go through, how many can you solve using different technology platforms in CRM. Ride-alongs work really well for salespeople. Again, Sometimes it's a little difficult to not tell them how they could be using CRM to make their day easier on these ride-alongs. They might go from point A to point C to point B when you know you have a route optimization solution in your Dynamics, and if only they pulled up the app, they could just plot those on a map, click a button, and boom, they see it all. But really find out what that pain point is. And I have a hint here, look for any manual Excel reporting that they're providing to people in your organization. A lot of times, if those fields in those Excel reporting are in CRM, you can recreate that report and just give them back 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, whatever it might be. So after you've found that pain, the next part of your challenge is to automate that pain. See if you can use CRM to solve their issues. And tip number 4, by the way, that has been the largest source of user adoption with organizations I've worked with. It's fantastic to take something that somebody's already spending a lot of manual administrative time and give it right back to them in their day. So tip number 5, this is a great one. I hope all of you are using these. So it's to configure business process flows. So business process flows were introduced in CRM 2013. So anyone using CRM 2013 or above has access to this great tool. And this is a powerful addition to the processes section of CRM that helps guide your users through steps of a business process. Now, there's a number of benefits to leveraging out of the box power of a business process flow. So first, it's going to help standardize business practices. Second, it ensures a similar customer journey regardless of which rep an individual might be working with. Third, it makes it simple for your end users to walk through a process. They just have to go through step 1, then move to step 2, then move to step 3, and continue through the process. So, and for you system admins, these are extremely easy to configure. So you can see in the screenshot on this slide, it's a simple drag and drop functionality. You'll customize your stages and steps to fit your business process. And think outside the box business process flows. You can add up to 5 different entities within a business process flow. So you have the availability to tailor these with how your organization does business. So the screenshot here is for one of the out-of-the-box processes that a lot of organizations who are using the sales aspect of CRM are using. It's the lead to opportunity sales process. However, if your organization proceeds in a process past that, you can just add those entities to it. So instead of lead to opportunity, you could go lead to opportunity, to quote, to order, or whatever you would like it to be. So these are a really powerful tool, and it is pure out-of-the-box configuration for you. Tip number 6, only show them what you need to see. So keep your forms clean. Nobody likes a cluttered form. If you utilize out-of-the-box permission levels, business roles, security roles, you can show only the necessary fields, forms, and sections to the group of users who need it. So Dynamics 365 is full of fantastic features like this that can make your system more user-friendly and can help increase user adoption at your organization. Some other things here are making a model-driven app for user group, which, if you recall, is my favorite thing that we talk about. And I will show you a demo of what that looks like in CRM as well. Tip number 7, it's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, system admin. There is no easier way to streamline your business process than by implementing those business process flows. So oftentimes we're brought into organizations without a streamlined business process. So how do you go on if you work for a company who does not have a defined sales process? It's not the easiest thing in the world, but you can help. You can work with management and end users. So that super user group that we created already at our company, we're going to work with them together to define our business process. We're going to streamline it. We're going to simplify everything. Find the commonalities that exist across the organization and then incorporate it into your business process. You can always edit your business process flows later. It's always easier to start with an extremely simple process and build from there. So once you have identified your streamlined sales and service business processes, put them into business process flows. Build your stages and then steps beneath each stage to help your end users walk through the process. And remember, your CRM ambassadors, your task group, your ninjas, your super CRMers, whatever you've decided to call them, they'll be there to test and verify the process before you go live. It's a fantastic feedback loop you can get. The other thing you can do is minimize the number of required fields. I don't think this will surprise any of the system admins on this call, but too many required fields will absolutely decrease user adoption. It creates a huge barrier to successful adoption. So use required fields sparingly in your system, and you will be rewarded with end users who enter their data and information into the system. The next item here is to select appropriate field types. So when you're building out new fields in CRM, make sure that you're going to select the appropriate type. For example, you want to make sure that you're selecting an option set type versus a free text when you can. It provides easier reporting. It provides easier automation in the future if you decide to take that field and create a workflow from it, or you want to run different processes against it. Use your two options and view them as a checkbox to make some fields intuitive. If you're using the new user interface, you can use the toggle switch to toggle between yes and no. And also leverage calculated fields and roll-up field types to let the technology behind Dynamics 365 do some of the heavy lifting for your end users. Overall, just keep it simple, system admins. Tip number 8. This is a difficult one, but we have to talk about it if we're talking about user adoption. We want to help improve data quality. And we can do this a number of ways. So we have field validation rules, we have tooltips, start with clean data, and set up duplicate detection rules. So I thought it would be nice to look at this using two examples to illustrate the difference between two different approaches. So one, an organization who ensures data integrity, and two, an organization who doesn't spend a whole lot of time on data quality. So we've got these two pictures. We've got scenario number 1. So this is an organization where data is king. So this is Jane. She's our salesperson. She's on the road. She's going to call on an account. While she's calling on that account, she accesses CRM on her mobile device, and she wants to view any prospects or leads that are in the same area. She finds 3 prospects, 2 cold leads, and decides to visit each while she's already in the area. CRM tells her the name of the main contact person at each location, so she is ready to make the most out of her time in the area. So scenario 2 on the right-hand side, this is the organization who's decided that we're going to figure out data quality in phase 2. So Bob is our salesperson, and he is also on the road. He's about to call on an account as well. He accesses CRM on his mobile device, and he looks up the account name to remember who he needs to call on. When he searches the account, 3 accounts with the same name appear. One is an account that was generated from ERP with a custom connection that we have there. The second account was directly entered into CRM by a customer service rep. And then a third account is actually the same location but spelled differently. So Bob spends time searching through each of these accounts, pulling them up separately, looking at the associated contacts on them. Bob then searches for prospects and leads in the same area because he's a smart salesperson. He wants to be like Jane in scenario number 1. He wants to go call on other things in the area. So Bob searches for prospects and leads in the same area as that account that he's going to. CRM gives him duplicate entries for each. He is frustrated and decides it's just easier to track his own leads in an Excel spreadsheet. So sadly, these aren't imagined scenarios. These come from real life scenarios from organizations who have adopted CRM and placed a different emphasis on the importance of data quality. So overall, you might find yourself in scenario number 2. You might be with an organization who did decide, let's just deal with data quality in phase 2. It's not too late. There are things that you can implement and make life a little bit easier. Things as simple as what we talked about on that previous slide, where we have some tooltips. A tooltip is simply when you hover over a field in CRM, it gives you a slight definition of what it is. So that helps people know what that is. Turn on duplicate detection, so you can configure duplicate detection rules to fix it, and you can clean up the data within Dynamics as well. So let's move on to business rules. This is another tip. This is one of my favorite configuration items as well. So tip number 9 is use business rules. Business rules are available in CRM 2013, 2015, 2016. And Dynamics 365, and a business rule allows you to apply form logic without writing JavaScript code or creating plugins. System administrators rejoice. So let's take a moment and look at what a business rule can do. So business rules provide a simple interface to implement and maintain fast-changing and commonly used rules. In older versions of CRM, all of these actions would require custom code in JavaScript. So it's really exciting that we can configure these using the simple drag and drop interface. A business rule can be applied to a main or quick create form, and they work in Dynamics 365 for tablets, mobile, and Dynamics 365 for Outlook, both online and offline mode. So there's a list here on the screen of the different action types that you can take within a business rule. You can use a business rule to set a field value, clear a field value, set business requirements, to validate data and show error messages. We can show fields, hide fields, enable fields, disable fields, and create business recommendations. So I'm going to take a moment and get my CRM system up here because I would like to show you what this looks like. All right, so this is a CRM system. It's a demo system that I've set up. And I just wanted to bring up a solution. So a separate topic is the importance of solution management. We actually have a webinar coming up about solution management best practices next month, which I'll give you more details at the end. So this is a solution, and since we're all system admins on here, hopefully this doesn't look too new to you. And in my components area, I'm going to expand my entities. I'm going to expand a lead. So this is my entity. Obviously, we have our normal form metadata, the views, the charts, the fields. But where I want to go is business rules because I've configured a business rule and I want to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to click this business rule and open it up. I'm going to deactivate it now just so I can kind of click around and show you what this looks like and how it was built. And we're just going to take a minute or two here to talk about a business rule and how everything works. So this is my canvas, this gray area here. And a business rule here is going to start with a conditional. A conditional is simply creating a true path and a false path. So you can see here my condition, I have my explanation here. So check if lead is commercial industrial. Underneath on the box on the right, this is where I'm actually defining what my true and false path will be. So if the lead type equals commercial and industrial, I'm going to follow the true path at the top with the checkbox. However, if the lead is not commercial industrial, I'm going to follow the false path. So this is a relatively simple business rule with just one condition. These can be as simple or complex as you'd like. And if I come over here and click this tab on components, I can start to see all the different actions that we looked at on that slide that we just had up. Now, the one that I'm using is set visibility right here at the bottom. It's got the little eye in the icon here. And if I want to add a new condition, I can simply grab this and just drag it across to my canvas and place it anywhere I'd like. So let's add a new one. So right now, what this is saying is if my lead is commercial industrial, my true path across the top, I want to show company name, I want to show the industry field, and I want to show SIC code. So for this example, we also want to show business number. So I'm going to type in a description. And entering a display name is absolutely a best practice in this. So going forward, you want to be able to understand what these steps mean and other people can come in and see what they were for. If you make sure that you have all that information, it'll make it a lot easier for you to troubleshoot. So here we have business phone is my field. Visible is a choice of yes or no. So I want it visible in this scenario. So I'm going to click apply. And now if a lead is commercial industrial, these fields will be shown. Now I also want to have the opposite. So I want to hide that phone if it's not. So I'm going to select visibility again, drag it over to my canvas and let go. And now I'm going to write the same thing. This time I want to hide business phone. I'm going to come down to the visibility section here and select my field. There we go. And this time I'm going to change visible to be no and click apply. So now if my lead is not commercial industrial, I'm going to hide company name. I'm going to hide business phone. I'm also going to hide industry and SIC code. Once I'm done this, I can save. It's going to tell me if the validation is successful. If there's an error, it will kind of spot check you before you have your super user group test this out and make sure they like it. And here's scope. So our scope, as a best practice, you would do all forms instead of entity-wide, or you could have it run on a specific form. Once you're ready to go, you're going to click activate, and this will ask for a little confirmation here. Are you sure you want to turn this on? As soon as I click activate, this business rule is active in my CRM system. So let me bring that over and show you what it looks like from the user side. So here is my CRM. We just built that on the lead, so I'm simply going to navigate over to sales and leads. I'm going to enter a new lead. And I just want to show you how it happens in real time. So as soon as we select our lead type of commercial industrial. So here's my commercial industrial, and you can see that we now can see the company name. And if we come down here, we have industry and SIC code. However, if my user comes in and selects residential, we hide the company name and we don't have industry or SIC code here. So that's what it looks like on the user side. And I hope that that was a worthy demo for you, but they're very simple to configure and turn on. So then we come to tip number 10, use workflows to automate regular tasks. So this is an example, and again, you'll have access to these slides after the webinar if you'd like to dive in and kind of see what the specific steps are here. But this is an example of using a workflow to automate a follow-up appointment on a calendar for both a mobile device and Outlook. Other examples of things you can configure workflows for, and these are real life examples we've used for customers. If you want to copy opportunity, send email notifications, automate tasks or phone calls, create an escalation process, or send alerts. Tip number 11, use model-driven apps and power apps. So one of my favorite things right now to use is configuring a custom business app in Dynamics 365 using Power Apps. That's right, custom app and configuration in the same sentence. It's fantastic. So there are a few prerequisites and assumptions before you proceed. You have to be a system admin or system customizer security role before you can create these. It's also a feature that's on Dynamics 365 version 9. So we're going to walk through kind of what these are. I'm not going to spend as much time as I did on business rules, but I do want to show you the user experience of using a model-driven app versus the traditional web app. So what are the benefits to creating a custom business app? Well, it's going to simplify the user experience. This will undoubtedly lead to an increase in user adoption. If we go back to our earlier tip about streamlining what is shown in your app to ensure that only relevant information is shown to a subset of your user group. So in the app, as you design it, you'll have the ability to define individual components that shows up, including system views, forms, charts, dashboards. All of this is without JavaScript. This is simple, drag and drop and click. So take advantage of the unified user interface. This app will look the same regardless of how your users access CRM. If they're accessing CRM using a web browser, a mobile device, or a tablet, it's all going to look the same. Additionally, Power Apps are built on a platform that already supports responsive design, which means your CRM will adapt to the size of the screen being used. Creating your first app is super easy too. It works similarly to the interface we just looked at with business rules. It leverages that drag and drop functionality. You're going to determine which artifacts, which can be an entity, a dashboard, or a business process, and then entity assets. An entity asset can be a form, a view, a chart, or a dashboard. Simplify the app sitemap, remove any noise for the user type. You only want to show them what they need to see. When you're all done, you set security roles in the app access. So I have a link here. If you get this later and you click on this link, this is a blog article that I wrote, which will get you started in building your first app if you want to play with it. But I want to bring over CRM for a moment again and just show you what the difference is. So again, this is Dynamics 365 Online. This is a demo environment. But this is probably similar to what you have today. So what we're looking at is the traditional web app. We've got our navigation at the top like we're all used to. This is for anyone on 2016, 2015, or 2013 as well. Now this is the exact same interface, but it's on the app itself. So again, I haven't changed my security role. I haven't changed settings. If I come in here, I have all of these system views on accounts. But if I come here, my navigation's on the left. So as a sales rep, the only thing I need to see are leads, opportunities, and accounts. They're right here. If I come in, I've only got 2 views here because they're the only views I need to see. Same with opportunities. I've got 3 views. If I come to accounts, I've got 1. So this has really streamlined the user experience. I can see my dashboards. Again, only individual dashboards which have been added to my app. So I only have 2. Again, if we compare that to what we're seeing in your traditional web app, if I come into dashboards, just for one specific example, this one has about 30 dashboards in here. This one just shows me what I need to see. So I hope this illustration is showing you how important this can be and how much of a game changer using a custom app here can be. And again, it's extremely easy to customize. So let me bring my solution up here again, because I would like to show you this. Looks like we have a few minutes. So I'm gonna come back to my components. And this is a model-driven app that I built. Oh, it's opening on my other monitor. So if I come here, this is the screenshot of exactly what that app designer looks like. So at the top is your sitemap. You can click the little pencil icon to edit your sitemap, which is going to show you which entities the user is able to access. So removing it from the sitemap will actually remove it from this column on the left. If I wanted to add contacts, for example, as soon as I add contacts to the sitemap, it's going to show up here. And then in each individual entity, which are the blue bars at the bottom of that screenshot, you can start to add different assets. So we've got our forms, our views, our charts, and our dashboards. Again, there's a lot more information on our website about getting started with Power Apps if you want to check it out. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left, which brings us to training tips. So let's take a few minutes here and let's talk about how people learn. People learn differently. There are many schools of thought surrounding learning styles. I like to incorporate the learning styles identified in the VARK model, which you can see here. I found them to be very accurate when looking at corporate training scenarios. So the 4 main learning types here in the VARK learning style are visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. So those of you on this webinar, hopefully you learn well with the auditory learning style. Otherwise, I have completely lost you and you're troubleshooting or you're working on something else at the same time as this. But let's talk a little bit about what they look like. So a visual learner will get a lot out of this PowerPoint. Seeing the words and seeing the example is a primary learning style. The second one is auditory. So lecture, webinar, hearing people speak is how you're going to absorb a lot of things. Reading and writing. So somebody that likes to actually read the blog afterwards and maybe write down notes. If you're sitting here on this webinar and taking notes, your primary learning style might be reading and writing. And kinesthetic. So my primary learning style personally is kinesthetic. I'm hands-on. I'm sitting here on this webinar and I'm actually talking to you with my hands moving because that's how I am. So if any of you on this webinar happen to be a kinesthetic learner, can you just do me a favor? Can you just stand up for a second just from your desk? I'm gonna stand up too. You can't see this, but maybe you can hear the difference. So stand up and just shake it out because as a kinesthetic learner, you just need to move a little bit. So all that in mind, let's just have a little fun with the poll real quick. And what learning style do you think is your primary? Just for fun, there's no reason for doing this other than we're just breaking it up a little bit and having a little bit of fun in our webinar. So again, everybody has more than one learning style. You might have all 4, but you're going to tend to have a primary learning style and a secondary learning style. And what's important about this and why we want to understand all of this is because we want to make sure we offer different learning experiences based on what your primary learning style is. All right, I'm going to close the poll. That was fun. Thank you for indulging me in a fun poll like that. I hope it was fun for you too. So keeping that in mind, I've identified some different training options for all of these learning styles, just to keep in mind the different aspects that you can use or the different tools you can use when you're talking about training your end users. Visual learners get a lot out of live training. Actually, if you notice, the first bullet on all 4 learning styles is live training. Now, obviously, live training is not always an option. However, it's the best. Think about your own personal learning styles. Everybody gets something out of a live training session. So I have included that in all of the learning styles. Whenever possible, if you can incorporate live training, that's fantastic. Visual learners also learn well by PowerPoint. They're good with a video library. If you're going to start offering video library training content, it's a great idea, a great rule of thumb to keep your videos in under 2 minutes. So it's small segments of information at a time. Demos and webinars are also excellent for visual learners. And we've got our auditory learners. So again, we've got the live training, of course, like we talked about, and also lecture and webinar work really well for that learning style. Reading and writing, we're going to look more at the quick reference guides and job aids and labs. So these are leave behinds that are written out. We also want to give opportunities for note taking for them as well. And finally, kinesthetic learners. Live training is great for kinesthetic learners, as are one-on-ones and small group. One-on-one, small group coaching, all of these ones work really, really well for customer service reps. So if you are training service users, you might want to incorporate some sort of coaching in there. So again, there's a ton of stuff that you can do to train people in CRM. I just think it's really important as trainers, if you're wearing a training hat or if you do some of the training in your organization, our default is to train in what we're comfortable on. So it's nice to go outside of your happy place and your comfortable learning style. In fact, if you're doing a webinar, I should have done this for this webinar, but you should turn on your webcam sometimes and just say hello and let people see you. It personalizes the experience, and it'll help people connect with you as a speaker versus just talking on a webinar. Tip number 14. So we want to offer role-based training when we can. When you are planning your end user training, make sure that you group your users based on their job role. Once you do that, you can offer one core training with topics for all of your users. You can cover things like navigation, search, views, sorting, filtering, advanced find, everything in that blue arrow down the right. So these are things that all users need to learn how to do regardless of what their role is. Then you can offer specific job-related training for different roles within your organization. So I have a few here, and this is just a really high level for examples. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list. But for example, your sales users need to be very comfortable with the lead to opportunity process, how to qualify and disqualify leads, how to win and lose opportunities. Your service users, your marketing users don't need to attend that training. They're not going to use it. Your service users are going to use a whole different area of CRM that your sales users don't need to attend. So that's your case management process, your escalation process, and how to use the knowledge base. And then your marketing users need something totally different from the sales and service users. They're going to learn more about marketing lists, campaigns, campaign responses, and how to use different things like that. So the really important part here is just to make sure that you are delivering the right training content to the right people instead of just throwing everybody into a room and learning everything all together. So my final tip, 5 minutes left, offer ongoing learning opportunities. Training is not just a go live, and I beg of you to do this in your organization. Avoid the big bang training approach. It might be good for an initial spike of user adoption, but that big bang training, that go live training focus without anything after, doesn't tend to bode well for ongoing user adoption. So some simple ideas that you might be able to incorporate in your organization, offer things like a lunch and learn. Publish a topic on a Monday. Say we're going to spend 15 minutes talking about how to create your own dashboard. And then 15 minutes after that will be Q&A. Ask me anything you want while you have some pizza. Again, that might or may not apply on your organization based on your culture and how it works. I've also implemented webinar lunch and learn. So I'm not actually giving you lunch, but we call them a lunch and learn because it's over the lunch break. Publish a topic again, and then have people join if they want to. It's not mandatory. You can start a tips and tricks session, which would be similar. You can also start launching CRM newsletters or have CRM tips and tricks within an existing newsletter or report you're already sending out. But again, whatever you can do to offer ongoing learning opportunities to make sure that user adoption process continues, people continue to learn more and use more, will be much better than your one-time go live training. Great. So I also wanted to plug 2 upcoming Behringer webinars that we have. So next Wednesday at 11 a.m., Erica Foley will be leading a webinar on CRM for distribution. If you would like to learn more, it's a product that we offer at Behringer. And then Thursday, June 13th at 11 a.m., any system admins on this call, I strongly recommend you attend this one. This is going to be a great session by Christina Bailey, best practices for solution management and patch deployment. So patches are something new in Dynamics 365, and it makes the whole process of moving sandbox changes to production a heck of a lot easier. And I know I only have 3 minutes left, but I do want to open it up. If you have any questions, you can type them into the questions box or raise your hand. I can take you off mute. So I will just be quiet if you have any questions. Otherwise, I really appreciate your time here. I hope you learned some tips and tricks that you can take back to your organization. If you need any documentation that we talked about, any of the Microsoft documentation or any links to blogs or anything, or just want to learn more about another topic, my contact information is here. Feel free to reach out to me directly or reach Behringer at behringer.net. So thank you, everybody. And I'll be here for a couple minutes if you have any questions to put in the questions box or raise your hand.